Welcome to episode 163 of the Lone Hockey Podcast, where today we're going to be talking about some standouts in last night's matchup between Washington and Chicago. And so it was a really good comeback from Chicago. I felt like throughout most of the game they had their chances, especially in the second period. They had three power plays in the second period, and they were creating a lot of shot volume, creating a lot of attempts. And I was quite surprised they weren't able to score in the second. And Washington, they still managed to come out of that second period being up 2-zip. And then Chicago in the third, they just erupted. They continued. Actually, no, it was 2-1 after the end of two. And then they just continued to get better throughout the third. And I believe it was 2-1. Anyway, so Chicago managed to come back. They ended up winning the game 3-2 off that game-winning goal, off that net drive from Ryan Donato. And I felt like that was a really big testament to how the game was really going. Like they just needed one little breakthrough in terms of one player to score and one player to really set apart the rest of the team. And I felt like Ryan Donato was able to do that. He leads the team, I believe, with 11 goals, and he's just been on a absolute streak in terms of his ability to score, his ability to generate shots, the power in his game. And there's occasions like this where he had that net drive yesterday coming off the back wall and driving to the net where he's not afraid to do that. I feel like that fearlessness is what they kind of need. They especially need it when it comes to their goal scoring. But when you look at their fundamentals and how they play offensively, there's just a sort of disalignment with how they play. And there's some players that need to bring that extra bit of spark. And I feel like Donato was able to do that yesterday. So in terms of Chicago side, I was starting with some standouts there. Ilya Mikheyev had a sick goal in this game. He had 2 points. I felt like this was one of the rare occasions where you actually noticed Mikheyev, and he had a really nice net drive to be able to maneuver around and cut through the hands of Jacob Chikrin off the rush and be able to get speed behind the puck. And then he maneuvered around Chikrin and then went backhand shelf for the goal. It's just beautiful goal, beautiful sequence. And really well timed from him to be able to execute there. And then TJ Brody had one goal in this game, and he looked really good manning the point. In the ozone, I felt like his ozone movement was a little bit more noticeable. I felt like his ability to walk the line using a little bit of deception in his feet was there. It's not the most flashy offensive guy, but you notice his ability from time to time to really create with his instincts and be able to get up ice and move across the ozone blue line as well. Teuvo Teravainen had 3 assists. I felt like his game was really noticeable as a passer and just his ability to generate shots, get volume on his shots. He was creating a lot of attempts where he could get some lift on the puck, and he was doing that really well, really nicely in the ozone. And he was just really noticeable as a passer. And I felt like his distribution ability was really noticeable, especially in the back half of the game. I would say in the back half of the second and the third period, especially in terms of how he's able to generate on his playmaking. And he was really flashy there. We mentioned Ryan Donato. I felt like Connor Murphy had a steady game. He was obviously a steady physical presence back there. He's always a very physical defenseman who likes to use his hands. It really likes to get into guys and defend one-on-one. And in terms of his isolation ability and defensively, I feel like that's where he's best at being able to defend in isolation and defend man to man. And he's not necessarily the most skilled defenseman when it comes to being able to incorporate modern defensive tactics like surfing and angles and stuff like that. But I feel like his old school ruggedness definitely helps defensively and allows him to shut plays down a little more effectively there. And then I liked Frank Nazar's game. He got called up recently, obviously, and Frank Nazar's been, I wouldn't necessarily say as noticeable to start, but in terms of his game yesterday, I noticed his ability to transport pucks to the neutral zone, be able to create there. And I'm just trying to see his entries link up to his neutral zone play. I feel like him controlling the middle of the ice is good. It just has to lead to entries and then ozone possessions for him at the NHL level thus far. He's been doing that in Rockford where he controls all three zones in terms of possession when he has the puck on his stick. And trying to translate that to the NHL is going to be the next challenge for him. And then on Washington side, I felt like Pierre-Luc Dubois had a really good game. He always seems to play really well against Chicago, especially since he played in Winnipeg and played in LA. I felt like he had some good games playing Chicago when he was with LA last year and then dating back to his time with Winnipeg. And even when he was playing with Columbus as well, I felt like there were some noticeable games he'd play against Chicago. So he always seems to get a really good possession driving ability when he plays against them for some reason. I don't know what it is. If it's the quality of the team, the quality of the defenseman that Chicago has, and how he's able to manipulate the offensive blue line, but with Dubois, he was really noticeable as a checker, really noticeable, really grinding plays down, being able to create turnovers with his bigger frame, and obviously he's hard to knock off the puck. So that's another challenge for Chicago's defensemen is trying to knock him off the puck. Yes, Chicago has a lot of taller defensemen, but they're also lanky. So I would say outside of Connor Murphy, you have a lot of lanky-ish type taller defensemen in Chicago's blue line. So most of them are more reliant on stick play and footwork than they are physical play. So with Dubois, he was able to get behind that a lot of the times. I felt like he was able to take advantage of that in certain situations. Andrew Mangiapane had a goal in this game. Again, him playing in Calgary, he was always playing Chicago a lot. So I felt like he's been noticeable when he plays them as well. And Mangiapane, just a guy who creates havoc down low, deep in the zone, and below the top of the face-off circle when he doesn't have the puck and when he's forechecking. So he can be that F1, F2 hard in guy. And Washington, they like to play a little bit more uber aggressive on their forecheck. They have the luxury of doing that because they have a lot of skilled players and also a lot of skilled wingers who are smart in anticipation and smart at anticipating the walls. So Mangiapane, a guy who understands forechecking really well, the details of it really well. And yes, he's a smallerish guy, but he competes his ass off. And I feel like that's the biggest thing when it comes to him is how he competes, how he forechecks, how he angles plays off, how he can cut plays down as well. So Mangiapane was noticeable throughout this game. And then I like Jacob Chikrin in terms of his ability to play man-on-man coverage, how focused and dialed he is when it comes to defending in zone defensively. He's got a really unique focus about him that allows him to focus on one man at a time defensively. He's really good at shutting entries against and denying those. And I felt like he was noticeable in transition and being able to control the puck with his head up. He's having a really good season thus far, and he's having a point per game season. So he's been a really nice fit for Washington thus far. I was kind of surprised that Ottawa ended up trading him in the summer for what they did, but now that's in the past, and at the same time, he's been thriving in Washington, and he definitely deserves a consistent top four level role, if not beyond that, because of his ability to play strong and sturdy in his frame defensively, but also be engaged offensively and in transition. So a lot of good standouts all throughout this game as well.